The film begins with a heartwarming scene of a family in their front yard. Brian, the father, is enthusiastically teaching his son Taylor how to ride his new bike, while Saya, the mother, captures the joyful moment on her camera. However, this idyllic scene is shattered in an instant when two rival gangsters speed by, embroiled in a fierce shootout. In the chaos, Brian and Saya are horrified to discover that their beloved son Taylor has been struck by a stray bullet and has tragically died in their arms. As the two cars continue to race away, exchanging gunfire, one gangster attempts to exit his vehicle for a better shot but quickly regrets it when he is hit. Meanwhile, Brian, bloodied and distraught, frantically navigates the streets of his neighborhood, desperately searching for the fleeing cars. The violence escalates as one group of gangsters manages to eliminate their rival driver, resulting in a catastrophic crash. As the remaining gangsters turn their attention toward the exit, Brian instinctively rummages through a nearby garbage bin and finds a metal pipe. He lays in wait for the approaching car, and when it draws near, he smashes their windshield with a powerful blow, nearly causing a collision. In retaliation, the gangsters aim their weapons at him, forcing Brian to flee for his life. Just then, he spots a forklift barreling toward them. Seizing the opportunity, he leaps over it, crashing down onto the gangster's SUV and decapitating one of the assailants in the process. However, his victory is short-lived. He is shot in the back by a surviving gangster, who coldly executes him with a brutal shot to the throat before leaving him to bleed out. Later, Brian is rushed to the hospital, clinging to life as Saya prays fervently for his recovery. Against the odds, the doctors manage to save him, and after a period of healing, he begins to regain consciousness in his hospital room. Detective Dennis pays him a visit, assessing his condition and leaving behind his card for future communication. A few days later, Brian awakens to find Saya at his side, tears of joy streaming down her face as she embraces him, grateful for his survival amidst the tragedy that has unfolded. Brian embarks on the challenging journey of therapy to relearn how to walk, yet the trauma of the attack has robbed him of his voice, leaving him tormented as he screams silently at his reflection in the mirror, tears streaming down his face. In a desperate bid to regain some semblance of normalcy, the doctors provide him with an artificial voice box, but the frustration of his situation overwhelms him, leading him to shatter it in a moment of despair before he succumbs to a deep emotional shutdown. After months of struggle, Brian is finally discharged from the hospital. Saya drives him home through a city marked by decay and rampant gang violence, a stark contrast to the life they once knew. They return to the very place where their lives were irrevocably changed, enveloped in a heavy silence. As Brian gazes at the now desolate front yard where he and his son Taylor once played, memories flood back, moments filled with laughter and joy that feel like a lifetime ago. Overwhelmed by grief, he breaks down in tears, staring at the empty space that once held so much life. Inside the house, remnants of Taylor's presence linger, his toys are still scattered on the table, and the Christmas tree stands adorned with gifts, including one that remains unopened. The sight is unbearable, and Brian's anguish deepens as he collapses into sorrow, finding solace only in Saya's comforting embrace. In a moment of rage and heartbreak, he notices a news report detailing the brutal slaying of his son, and in a fit of fury, he tears it apart. Seeking an escape from the pain, he heads to the kitchen and grabs a bottle of vodka, silently pleading for Saya's help with his eyes. But she can only watch helplessly as tears spill down her cheeks, unsure of how to reach him. The next morning, as Saya prepares for work, it's clear that Brian did not find solace in sleep. Instead, she discovers him alone in the basement, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. She sends him a text asking if he has seen her car keys, but he is lost in his memories of Taylor. Overcome by nostalgia and sorrow, Brian makes his way to his son's untouched room, sitting on the bed where they once shared countless moments together. Tears flow freely as he lays down, yearning for the comfort of his son's presence. Finally, driven by an urgent need to confront his pain rather than succumb to it, Brian rushes to the basement. With determination, he clears away the vodka bottles that have become symbols of his despair and reaches for his tools, ready to channel his grief into action. Saya returns home and pauses for a moment in her car, gathering her thoughts before stepping inside. Noticing Brian's absence, she sends him a text, but when he doesn't respond, a sense of unease washes over her. Meanwhile, Brian discovers Detective Dennis's business card and decides to visit the police station. As he waits in Dennis's office, his gaze drifts to the police notice board filled with photographs of local gangsters wanted for various crimes. He begins taking pictures of the faces displayed, and suddenly, his heart races as he spots Playa, the very gangster who shot him. When Detective Dennis finally returns, Brian is already on his way out, consumed by a newfound purpose. Back at home, he pins the photos of the gangsters to his wall, meticulously planning his own investigation. With a chilling resolve, he marks December 24th as the day he will exact his revenge. Brian immerses himself in intense workouts while watching instructional videos on how to wield a knife effectively. As he hones his physical skills, the chasm between him and Saya widens, yet, he remains unwavering in his quest for vengeance. Months pass, and Brian buys a used car, exhilarated by the progress he's making toward his goal. Meanwhile, Saya struggles under the weight of mounting bills, often hearing him toil away at night, modifying his vehicle, each sound a reminder of their growing distance that begins to fracture her spirit. Determined to arm himself further, Brian enrolls in firearms training, focusing on honing his aim. He amasses a collection of weapons and starts listening to police radios, deepening his commitment to his dark mission. One night, feeling the weight of his isolation, he attempts to reconnect with Saya, who has decided to move in with her mother, leaving him behind. In a fit of frustration, he unleashes his anger on a training dummy. Afterward, he takes his car for a drive, practicing his skills with an intensity fueled by desperation. By October, Brian begins staking out the gangsters' known hideouts, capturing images of their illicit activities. During one tense moment, he witnesses Playa enjoying a carefree moment before noting a man leaving in a car, snapping a photo of the license plate with grim determination. Brian has transformed into a muscular, athletic figure and a highly skilled driver, adept at maneuvering his car with precision. This newfound prowess is crucial because, at long range, he no longer struggles to hit his target with rapid succession. One day, while out, he encounters a little boy who bears an uncanny resemblance to Taylor, and he instinctively hugs him, only to realize that this child is not his own. As he returns to his car, he spots Playa surrounded by children, handing out cash, igniting a surge of anger within him. He instinctively reaches for his knife but hesitates, recognizing the innocent lives around him. In a moment of misfortune, Brian accidentally collides with a gangster who shoves him to the ground, and to add insult to injury, a woman nearby douses him with ice cream. That night, Brian steels himself for what lies ahead. On December 23rd, he tracks down the home of one of the gangsters and stealthily breaks in. When the gangster hears noise and comes to investigate, Brian swiftly knocks him down. He then secures the man, hog-tying him in the roof of his garage while donning a welding mask for anonymity. With a grim determination, Brian cuts the gangster free and demands information about the gang, presenting him with papers and a pen. He takes a seat, but the gangster unexpectedly lunges at him, managing to break free. In a chaotic struggle, the gangster seizes Brian's knife and stabs him in the leg. The two engage in a fierce fight. Despite the pain and difficulty, Brian ultimately stabs the man with a screwdriver before tackling him to the ground. The gangster fights back fiercely. But Brian's resolve prevails as he overpowers him, beating him into submission. On December 24th, Brian prepares for the day ahead, strapping on body armor and readying his firearms. Before leaving, he writes a note and takes one last look at Taylor's room, absorbing every detail as he contemplates the possibility of not returning. He then visits Saya's temporary home and finds her drawing a picture of Taylor, a poignant expression of her grief and desire for reconciliation. Later, he goes to Taylor's grave with a gift in hand, marking what would have been his birthday. Alone at the grave site, he sits in silence and cries for an extended period before finally opening the gift meant for Taylor. That night, Detective Dennis is jolted from his thoughts by a sound at his door. Cautiously, he retrieves his firearm and opens the door, only to be confronted by the sight of a bound and gagged gangster alongside a chilling note. Later, law enforcement arrives to examine the message, which reveals Brian's ominous declaration that he will address the matters Dennis should have handled himself. Accompanying the note is a flash drive containing meticulously gathered evidence and detailed information about the gang's operations over the past months. As night deepens, Brian is behind the wheel when he hears a police report detailing gang activity. He instinctively drives toward the chaos, only to witness two gangsters mercilessly assaulting and robbing a couple. In a surge of righteous fury, Brian slams his car against the wall, pinning one of the assailants before plunging a knife into him. The other gangster, desperate, clings to the top of Brian's car as he tries to escape. In a frantic struggle, Brian attempts to shake him off, but when the man brandishes a gun, Brian reacts instinctively, disarming him and firing a fatal shot in one swift motion. Overwhelmed by the gravity of taking a life for the first time, Brian is consumed by nausea. Determined to send a message, he makes his way to the gang's compound and hurls a wrapped package over the wall. Moments later, one of Playa's men delivers it to their leader, revealing it to be the severed fingers of the men Brian has just slain. The city erupts in violence as another fierce gang shootout unfolds, with multiple officers caught in the crossfire. As Brian arrives on the scene, he witnesses a female officer being shot. Without hesitation, he drives into the fray, targeting gangsters with ruthless precision while one of them live streams the chaos, broadcasting Brian's actions directly to Playa. Amidst the gunfire directed at his vehicle, Brian fights back fiercely, attempting to save the fallen officer. Tragically, she succumbs to her wounds just inches away from him. Heartbroken, he pushes her body out of the car and spots the live-streaming gangster. He sends the man flying with his car before seizing his phone. Viewing the live stream, he takes aim and shoots him dead, a deliberate message for Playa to see. Realizing that Brian is behind these acts of defiance, Playa quickly mobilizes his gangsters, issuing an urgent order to hunt him down. As the thugs mercilessly pummel a rival, their attention is drawn to an approaching Cara. It's Brian. He locks eyes with them, a grim determination etched on his face, before he drives away, leaving the chaos behind. Pulling over on an old bridge, he takes out a cherished music toy that once belonged to Taylor. As the familiar melody fills the air, it serves as a poignant reminder of his purpose and the love he fights for. With renewed resolve, Brian sets off again, but the gangsters quickly regroup and pursue him through the city streets. In a deft maneuver, he executes a 180-degree turn, confronting the men head-on before expertly drifting to fire at one of them. He speeds away, but they are relentless, hot on his tail. A biker joins the chase, unleashing a hail of bullets that forces Brian to accelerate further. Suddenly, he finds himself trapped in a roadblock, wedged between two trucks as gangsters open fire. With quick thinking, he takes down one assailant before executing a pit maneuver on the front truck, resulting in a catastrophic collision between both vehicles. The biker remains undeterred, firing shots at Brian's battered car. As the biker closes in on him, Brian seizes the opportunity to grab his gun, sending the biker crashing into the ground before he drives him headfirst into a wall. Taking a moment to catch his breath, Detective Dennis in his car, poring over the evidence Brian had shared with him. Determined to confront the gang, he heads toward their headquarters. Meanwhile, Playa, enraged by the attack on his men, sends out an urgent message summoning all his goons back to his stronghold. Brian pulls up just outside the gang's building, the haunting melody of Taylor's toy playing softly as memories of happier times flood his mind. Ensuring all his weapons are primed and ready, he checks the phone he retrieves from the live streamer and sees Playa's message to his crew. Recognizing a critical opportunity, Brian gears up and sets out on a motorcycle, ready to finish what the gangsters started. He stealthily slips into the hideout just behind a convoy of gangsters, igniting a fierce gunfight that erupts around him. He detonates his motorcycle, unleashing a massive explosion that engulfs the area in flames, igniting the gangsters caught in its wrath. Meanwhile, chaos reigns as his own men are systematically taken down. Playa, reveling in the mayhem, enjoys the company of his female accomplice, oblivious to the unfolding tragedy. As Brian ascends the building, the cacophony of shouting men fills the air, prompting him to pause and gather his strength. Armed gangsters begin their descent down the staircase, and he responds with precision, firing at them as they emerge and engaging in hand-to-hand combat when necessary. His training shines through. One by one, the men fall before his relentless assault. Transitioning to his sidearm, he continues to eliminate threats with lethal efficiency. In a moment of vulnerability, he attempts to reload his shotgun but is caught off guard by 3 bullets striking his body armor. He stumbles but quickly regains his footing. Strategically, he sets an explosive trap in the main hallway, only to be ambushed by a formidable gangster named Ruiz. The brute strength of Ruiz proves overwhelming as he tosses Brian around with ease, disarming him when he reaches for his weapon. Brian endures punishing blows, but just as Ruiz seems to gain the upper hand, a detonation from the bomb trap distracts him long enough for Brian to plunge a knife into his shoulder. Yet Ruiz refuses to yield, countering with a devastating suplex that leaves both men gasping for breath. At that moment, Detective Dennis infiltrates the building, stepping over the lifeless bodies strewn across the floor. In a fierce showdown, Brian and Ruiz scramble for their guns. Ruiz fires first, but Brian's reflexes kick in. He disarms him in a swift motion and retaliates with a fatal shot to Ruiz's head. Meanwhile, Dennis finds himself under siege but showcases his skill and composure as he dispatches each assailant with calculated precision, carving a path through the chaos toward his own objective. Later, Brian and Dennis stand poised in a tense standoff, guns drawn and an oppressive silence enveloping them. In a crucial turning point, Dennis deliberately lowers his pistol, a powerful gesture that signifies his loyalty to Brian. However, their fragile alliance is shattered when Playa's accomplice opens fire, forcing them to seek cover. In a tense standoff, she reloads just in time to hit Brian, followed by a shot that grazes Dennis's arm. Seizing the chaos as an opportunity, Brian crawls toward her and presses his gun to her head, demanding she drop her weapon. Despite the dire circumstances, his sense of honor prevents him from shooting a woman. In a shocking twist, she retaliates by pulling a pistol and firing twice at him before turning her aim on Dennis, hitting him squarely in the chest. Brian responds with lethal precision, shooting her down. As both men struggle to recover from their wounds, Brian retrieves his pistol and sets out to confront Playa. The two adversaries finally meet in a fierce exchange of gunfire. Brian absorbs several shots to his vest and falls to the ground. Just as Playa prepares to deliver the final shot, Dennis intervenes, shooting Playa in the back and giving Brian the opening he needs to tackle him. In a brutal struggle, Brian pummels Playa's face before choking the life out of him, all while their eyes lock in a battle of wills. As Playa gasps for breath, Brian envisions a smiling Taylor, filling his mind with memories of joy. Meanwhile, Dennis drags himself toward Brian, who is lost in visions of Taylor's brief life and the future that was stolen. The scene shifts to Saya at Taylor's grave, where Brian's cherished toy, a train, encircles the headstone. In anguish, she reads a heartfelt note from Brian before gently placing it at the grave, a poignant tribute to the love and loss they both endured. Thank you for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more recaps until next time. Have a nice day.